Shalom, everybody, and welcome back to Insights in the Parsha of the Week, Parshat Emor, based on the teachings of Rabbi Nachman. Besides the period now, which is very exciting, like for example, tonight is Pesach Sheni, which is absolutely amazing, and we have next week Lag BaOmer. Still, we'd like to focus on the richness of the Parsha. There's so much in the Parsha, it's unbelievable. So, in the end part of the Parsha, it talks about the festivals, the holidays. And there's a wording that is repeated 3 times in the parsha. Okay, and the rabbis in the Gemara, Rosh Hashanah, page 25a, the Rashi partially they explain the why they need to say over again the same idea. Let's take a look. First is in this week's parsha, Emor, chapter 23, verse number 2, when introducing the festivals, the mitzvah of celebrating Yom Tov, Pesach, Shavuot, etc. So the verse introduces, Daber el bnei Israel, Hashem commands Moshe, speak to the Jewish people, v'amata lehem, and say to them, Moadei Hashem, the festivities, the times of festivity, that's the exact translation, Moed is a time of festivities of Hashem, Asher tikreu otam mikrei kodesh, in which you should call them to be a call out, a shout out of holiness, Elehem Moadai. The following are my festivals, which call out and declare Hashem's holiness. Okay, so that's the first time it's mentioned. That what Asher Tikrotam b'Mekre Kodesh. Then, finally, when actually beginning to mention about Pesach, so 2 verses later, verse number 4 reads like this: Ele Moadei Hashem Mikra Kodesh. The following are the actual festivals of Hashem, the times of Hashem, which call out holiness, the holiness of Hashem. Asher Tikrotam b'Moadam, in which you should call them in their times. So you see, it says again, Asher Tikreu Otam. These 3 words appear again, and Rashi points out why they need to repeat the idea. You just mentioned it 2 verses earlier. Okay, you just said that, and now again, fine. The wording is not word for word, but the idea is similar. So Rashi already points out there's 2 reasons, there's 2 separate mitzvot here why the redundancy is needed. The first pasuk, and verse number 2, is that it's teaching us, Rashi points out, Asem mo'adot sheyu Yisrael melumadin bahem. Make festivals that will train the Jews to be accustomed to them, that it'll be easy for them to remember, to be accustomed to following and doing. What specifically? Shema'abrim et hashana, to be able to make a leap year, to know when to intercalate and add a 13th month. Why? Al galuyot, for the sake of the Jews who are in exile, who are far. Shene'ekru mimekomam, that now they're far, they're out of the Holy Land. La'alot la'regel, to be able to come to Yerushalayim, for the Aliyat HaRegel, to come to the temple, which is the requirement when there's a Beit HaMikdash. V'adayin lo higiu Yerushalayim, and they still didn't have a chance to come back to Yerushalayim, so give them time. In other words, because if now there's no leap year, many times Pesach will be in the middle of the winter or middle in the deep of the summer, and it won't be comfortable for the Jews who are far to be able to come through with all the rain and the snow wherever they are, or if it's too much heat. So that way, with the secret of intercalation, where the sages, the Beit Din in Yerushalayim, knew how to add a leap year, add a 13th month, that way always balancing that Pesach always falls in spring, Aviv, in the month of, on the time span of Aviv, but that's dependent if there's a leap year or not. 1 year yes, another year no. It's a whole special way to know how to intercalate. So the Torah is teaching here, Rashi says, that make it that it's easy for the Jews who are far, that they'll be able to come to Yerushalayim, and they'll be used to it. If it's the same season and it's more or less the same weather, they'll enjoy coming to Yerushalayim for Pesach, okay? And also for all the other festivals. That was verse number 2. So now in verse number 4, why is it repeated? So Rashi says a different mitzvah. Lemala medaber, and this is Rashi on verse 4. Lemala medaber be'ibur shana. Verse 2 spoke about making a leap year, adding a 13th month. Vekan medaber bekidush hachodesh, in sanctifying the moon for every month. So which day actually falls Yom Kippur, which days Rosh Hashanah, which days Sukkot, which days. To know that, it's all dependent on when the sages sanctify the new moon in Yerushalayim. Today, we don't have a temple, so we have it set. But this was initially to teach the sages that it's in the hands, to teach Am Yisrael that it's in the hand of the sages, the Beit Din, to be able to establish when is the new moon, okay? Then, this is the first two times. The third time is mentioned way later on in verse number, where was it? I just had it, sorry. Here, verse number 37. Again, at the end, right towards the end again, or in the middle, sorry, before the mitzvah of Sukkot. Ele modeh Hashem asher tikreotam mikrei kodesh. Again, these are the festivals of Hashem. This is verse 37, right? Asher tikreotam, in which you should call them out, mikrei kodesh. A third time it's brought down, okay? So the first two, Rashi explained why. The first one is to teach one thing about making a leap year. The sages have the ability to make a leap year. The second one was to teach of Kiddush HaChodesh. The third one is for a different teaching brought down in the Gemara. The Gemara and the Mishnah in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, page 25, deals with a very difficult situation between Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua. That Rabbi Yeshua, based on his calculations, Yom Kippur was supposed to fall on a different day. And Rabban Gamliel calculated another day. And Rabbi Yeshua disagreed, but Rabban Gamliel had a higher stature. So he said, Gozrani Alecha, I decree for you to come on your day that you think is Yom Kippur, to come to me with shoes on, with your cane, like as if it's a regular day, and not as Yom Kippur. And it was very difficult for Rabbi Yeshua. And then Rabbi Akiva, who was the student of Rabbi Yeshua, was trying to console him, because Rabbi Yeshua said, I'd rather be dead, or I'd rather be sick than to be able to come before Rabban Gamliel on that day. So Rabbi Akiva said, but the sages taught already that the reason why it says 3 times otam, right? It says asher tikra otam, in which you should call them out. Now, the word otam in the verse that we saw, verse number 2, verse number 4, and verse number 37, the way it's written in the Torah is without the letter vav. We pronounce otam. Asher tikra otam, in which you should call them out. Them is otam. Because it's written in the Torah without the letter vav, it can be misread or read differently as atem. Asher tikreu atem, which means you guys. So they taught, the sages learned out, explaining the pasuk, that the reason why the pasuk reads atem and not otam is that the sages have the power to determine the month, the beginning of the month, which means, and also the leap year, which means it on them is based when will be Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot. Yom Kippur is the most severest because it's like Shabbaton has the same category as Shabbat. Even though all the the festivals are called Shabbat, but Yom Kippur sticks out in its severity, right? So all that is in the hands of the sages. So that's Atem. So now why 3 times? To teach, the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, page 25, 3 times Atem, even if the sages make a mistake, shogegin, even if mezidin, intentionally making a mistake, and the third one is like there's a ones, there's by accident. 3 languages, and Rabbi Akiva told Rabbi Yeshiva, what can you do? Even if Rabban Gamliel is wrong, the Torah gives him the authority as being the chief of the Beit Din, that even if the sages make a mistake, it's valid. Their Yom Kippur, even though technically of all the proofs of Yeshua, that 1 second, Yom Kippur is supposed to be a day earlier. What are you making a day later? Halacha is like the Beit Din, even if it's a mistake and an error and everything, okay? So what's going on here? What in the world is going on here? The idea, first of all, of the moon which is waxing, okay? And based on that, the festivals. Let's first go into the first thing that Rashi mentioned. The Jews who are in Gola, okay, who are exiled, and it's a long time for them to come to the Regel, especially because when you change the season, so we have to make a leap year to make it easy for them, okay? That doesn't apply so much today. There's no Beit HaMikdash. There's no obligation to come to Yerushalayim. There is a mitzvah, yes, in the Midrash that says there's a mitzvah to Aliyat HaRegel, even today that there's no temple. There is a mitzvah in that, but it's not an obligation like in the time when there was a temple. There's a deep idea here. It's representing Jews who are lost. Jews who are stuck in the Galut, in the Gola, means Jews who are really in darkness, who are stuck in the chamber of exchanges. Okay, this idea of exile. Chamber of exchanges is a term used very frequently in Breslov literature and in the Kabbalah of the status of someone who's lost in life, someone who's lost. Everything is mixed up. They don't even know they're lost. They're trapped in like a matrix, if you want to say, like an imaginary zone. But they're the souls that are stuck there. And the tzaddikim, they have the ability to reach in and extract them. The tzaddikim have the ability to enter the chamber of exchanges, shine a light into the lost, sleepy souls, wake them up, and extract them. Okay? And every Jew, believe it or not, every Jew also has access to various mitzvot and devotions, which have in their power also to reach in a person's also personal chamber of exchanges and to bring him out also. Especially, Rabbi Nachman teaches, doing mitzvot with joy. The Gemara says this also. And the Midrash, that mitzvot, the doing mitzvot with joy is what elevates a person, brings him out of the darkness. Okay? So, there is this thing of going into a danger zone and pulling out. The idea of the sages having the permission, the ability, and it's up to them, like the verse says, Asher tikru otam, you guys call it out. Atem, the verse is Aleph Tav Mem, without the letter Vav. You guys have the ability to determine when to make a leap year, when to not make a leap year. It's up to you. And Hashem agrees, even if it's an error and a mistake, like the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because the tzaddikim, these ones who are determining the leap year, for the sake of the souls that are far, that are trapped, to bring them up to Yerushalayim means on a practical level, on an ethical level, to bring Jews back to holiness, to kedusha. So the tzaddikim, Hashem gives it their hands because they're so powerful, even if there's mistakes. Why do they say that? Why does the Gemara say, even if intentional, unintentional? Because when entering danger zone, things are so upside down that it can appear that what the tzaddikim are doing are making mistakes, but really not. Because they're there intentionally to help bring out souls to come back out, okay? So the Torah gives them permission that even if it seems to be a mistake, Hashem's with them because what they're doing is far more greater in going into a domain of darkness and shining a light for the lost souls and to bring them back. So the idea of causing a leap year, in other words, another dimension, to explain a little, Judaism, the holiness of the Judaism, the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, is broken up maximum into 12 tribes. Okay, 12 tribes connotes holiness. You know, we're within the boundaries of the bed of Jacob. Jacob's bed was considered complete and holy. He had no dross. Avraham had Ishmael, Yitzchak had Esav, Yaakov only tzaddikim. And us, the Jewish people, descended from Yaakov, go under the category of the 12 tribes. If not physically, at least our spiritual root of our neshama comes from various tribes of the 12 tribes, okay? What is 13 connote? 13 connotes Jews who, due to their deeds, due to the weakness of being subjugated to exile, the darkness of exile, which is such a confusing zone, a no zone, an upside down zone. So Jews in that category are called number 13. They're behind holiness, behind the kedusha. So the tzaddikim have a power. The idea of the Beit Din in Yerushalayim to make a 13th month is that the tzaddikim, the highest caliber tzaddikim who sat in the Sanhedrin in Yerushalayim, they have their ability to activate a number 13 and juxtapose it, join it to the 12, so there's a chance for even those souls who are now minus 12, out of the 12, because of their deeds and their upbringing or whatever, lost souls, whether it's of Baal Tshuvas, whether of converts, who are just totally lost due to the exile, due to the chamber of exchanges. So they're in a 13th category of new holiness initiated by the tzaddikim. They can add another month. Another month. And which month, Dafka? Adar. One of the happiest months. The happiest months. In fact, it's like the last month of the year. When you're counting from Nisan, it's the last, like the end, and we add another one for their sake, that they too can have a chance to come back. The idea to make it accessible, in other words, the 13th month is added to give a chance for these lost souls to come back. So that's the first, what Rashi brought down on the first time it's mentioned, the Moadim, that they have the power of intercalation. It's called in Hebrew Soda Ibur, the tzaddikim, they know the secrets of Ibur. But like the Gemara says, that the three Atem, otam atem, is even if the sages seemingly make a mistake. How did you make a leap year this year? You miscalculated. Hashem says it's valid because now going into the zone and domain of the chamber of exchanges, which is dangerous. There's no questions. Hashem is with the tzaddikim. It's a very scary hunt, but the gain is greater than the loss. So Hashem says, even if it's shogeg and mezid, intentional, unintentional mistakes, Hashem says, I'm with you guys. However, I give it over to the Beit Din to declare how the festivities will be in order to extract holy souls to come back. So that's the idea of the leap year. Now every month, if the sages determine that day 31 became day number 1, and day 30 was the last day, or 29, 30, like the Mishnah says, on calculation of the new month, based on the testimony of the witnesses, maybe also the witnesses make mistake, and the Beit Din, they trusted the witnesses that came, we saw the moon like this, all that is accepted in the end. Even if it was a mistake, mekudash, the moon is sanctified based on the Beit Din. Here also, on a monthly basis also, the moon, the waxing of the moon, to determine when does the moon start. The idea of the moon also relates to the Jewish people, okay? And that the moon has a full moon cycle, and then it's waxing, it's diminished, and then it's growing, reflects also the status of the Jewish people. We're compared to the moon. But the thing is, with the Jewish people, we have major ups and downs. Even Jews within the 12 tribes still, who didn't go into category 13 like we mentioned about the leap year. Jews who are within the parameters of holiness, they have ups and downs. Everyone has dark moments and moments of light when like the full moon is bright and beautiful. So we have highs, but we have also lows. And it's so dangerous also because in our dark moments, we are also technically in the zone of the chamber of exchanges where everything is dark and mixed up and we don't know where to come out. So here the tzaddikim also, that they determine when is the mikudash, when does the new moon begin, because that's the whole idea of the testimony of the witnesses. They say we saw the big crescent, the initial crescent of the month shining like this, like that. That's how it was in the Beit Din in the time of the Beit HaMikdash. They had to ask tons of questions to the witnesses to see how they saw and everything. And based on all that, the sages would say, okay, the beginning of the light to start shining is today and not yesterday and not tomorrow. And again, the idea that tzaddikim have the ability to go into the darkness of a person and to determine, okay, now is the beginning of the up, whether it's on a national level or also on a personal level. So this is the idea that Rashi says that atem, again, you tzaddikim, you sages, determine when the new moon begins. Hashem says, I'm with you, I'm on your page, I'm on your side, because it's such a difficult job. Hashem gave over to the tzaddikim, which represent, in our case here, the chief Sanhedrin, the chief high court in Yerushalayim, which consisted of the greatest tzaddikim of the generation of the time. They have the ability to determine when the moon begins, and based on that, the festivities, because Aliyat HaRegel, the term we call for the festivals, is Aliyat HaRegel, which means that when people would walk, regel means to walk, to come to Yerushalayim. Back then, they would walk. Everyone with their feet, if they're traveling by donkey, by horse, by wagon, or by foot, would come with their feet to Yerushalayim. And then in the Yom Tov, they have to walk to the actual Beit HaMikdash, okay? Aliyat HaRegel literally means elevating the feet. Elevating the feet, Rabbi Nachman says this idea many times in Likutey Moharan and Breslov literature throughout, to elevate the people who are so stuck, like the level of the feet. They're all down in the klipot, in the domain of evil. Aliyat HaRegel, the idea of the festivals, is to elevate all those people who are stuck, wherever they're stuck, to get them out. They're stuck in the level of the feet, which is close to the domain of the impurity. That's the idea of what's under the feet, the klipot, to bring them back up. So this is the work of the tzaddikim, and the Torah is hinting that Hashem gives it over to the tzaddikim to determine when the new moon begins, and thus when the festivals will actually be. If now they made a 31st day in the month of Tevet and Shvat has repercussion, when Pesach will be, when Yom Kippur will be, when all the festivals will be, and it has to be the right date. So Hashem says the right date, I give over to the tzaddikim, because it's their job to do this, to elevate lost souls, to bring them back, whether it's to the leap year scenario or the monthly cycle. We should be zochem to have such a connection to such tzaddikim who are able to go into our personal darkness, and all the more so for the lost souls who are in the domain of the lost chambers totally. They don't even know that they're lost, to get those souls back by the idea of the 13th month, which is an additional level of holiness and a chance to give a chance for the lost souls beyond the 12 tribes to come back, Bezrat Hashem. Shabbat Shalom, and have an amazing week.